जाग्रति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः. This is the verse we are on, a cryptic verse, and Adi Shankara adorns it with a 2-page or a 2.5-page bhashya. That is why we are sitting here in the same verse, because it is incumbent upon us to understand this properly. Without understanding this, if we go ahead, then there will be confusion about the nature of the Jnani and how the Jnani is different from the one who doesn't know. That also will not become very clear. So, we are in the middle of the Bhashya. Up till now, what we have seen is that the night and day nature of the life and reality experiences, the day-to-day experiences of the Jnani and the Ajnani are like night and day. Onto that reality that one is not a doer, unto that reality that I am not a doer, that I am not even a knower. Doing comes only when I have the status of a knower, because knowledge precedes action. So here, any kind of a trich pratyaya, the er, trich, in Sanskrit is not er, it's tr, tr. And so this er attached to any verb, eat plus er, eater, and then drinker, thinker, actor, knower, doer, experiencer, enjoyer, all this, er, er, er. The whole life is in er. Always one is a doer. Er, er, er. One identifies as er, and then too much er sends one to the er. Okay, that's what that's what happens. Stress, palpitations, all these things. You check yourself into the er out of too much er. And so this is the problem. And this doership, this notion that I am a doer, is extremely stubborn. Does not go away easily. Goes only with knowledge. And therefore, this has to be tackled properly. Because sitting in the place where one is identified with not just the body-mind complex, but also the notion that one is a karta. One cannot imagine somebody not being a karta, including oneself. So if you think somebody is not a doer, then what will you think of them? They are lazy, they are just a burden on society. Why can't they do like everybody else? And so this is something so out of the vision, out of the ballpark. That is why there is a big discussion. So the life of doing, the life of addiction to doing, and the life of a frenetic identification with one as a doer is like night time to the Jnani who has awakened to a different reality thanks to the Pramana Shastra. The Pramana of Vedanta that has done Upashamana, that has extinguished the distinction between the knower and the known, the grasper and the grasped, the subject and the object, How has this pramana obliterated the distinctions? The pramana has obliterated the distinctions in the wake of the knowledge that the subject and object difference is mithya. Any difference between knower, known, doer, done in, and thinker, thought, all these differences are an as though projection, a superimposition, so to speak, on that reality which is free of all superimpositions, which morphs into those superimpositions or those projections and morphs into the various names and forms without becoming any one of them. This is the reality. Awakening to that reality, all life as before this jnanam ceases to be. And shocking as this understanding is, it must be assimilated before we are to close this chapter or go any further. It is shocking because we see that even the jnani does. Jnani eats the food, jnani goes to sleep, jnani awakens, jnani talks, jnani teaches, maybe the jnani writes a book. So all this we see the jnani doing action. And then that's even further confusing because the jnani is in the world, so to speak, but not off of it. And so therefore, it flummoxes the mind. It is very mind-boggling. What is the difference then between jnani and ajnani? The difference here is that the doing and the doer notion is sublated. Sublated means the doer is an as though doer. This doesn't mean that the person is going about their day like a zombie, just doing things without the mind being there. But the person is able to live in both the empirical and the paramarthic reality at the same time. That is the person awakened to this knowledge. So the person lives firmly in the absolute reality while visiting the empirical reality and inhabiting the empirical reality while knowing that I am not really in this reality, I am just a visitor. So when you are a visitor, you can afford to be much more magnanimous than when you are at home. When you are on your home turf, you are very particular. You are very particular, for example, how the day should go. You are very particular how you want your coffee, how much sugar, how much milk, what kind of coffee, and then what kind of cup you will have it in. What kind of mattress should it be for you to go to bed? What kind of waking up you should do? All these things one is very particular in the home turf. But suppose you go somewhere to visit somebody at a wedding, or you go to some conference, you're staying in a hotel, and then you're there, you're just a temporary visitor. You can afford to be much more magnanimous. You can afford to be much more forgiving of the lapses of people around you. You can afford to be much more accommodative. You find yourself much more accommodative, much more magnanimous, much more free, much more easy going. Not everybody, but mostly. Generally, this is the rule. Some people are very demanding even when they go somewhere else. Even when they go to the ashram, they think of it as a hotel. So we are not including them. We are including generally. People tend to be much more accommodating if they know that this is just a little visit. My home is elsewhere. Similarly, the jnani visits the empirical reality, the going and coming reality where everything is in a flux and everything is happening. The jnani is able to live in both realities because the nishtha, the jnana nishtha, the certainty is there. The assimilated knowledge tells what? That you belong here. You don't belong elsewhere, you belong here. You belong with yourself. You live in yourself. Your home is indeed Om. And from that place, you can visit any reality. No problem. And because you are not deluded by the actions and you don't get reeled into thinking that you are the doer or that you are done in by other people's doings. You don't think that. You don't identify with that because you know where is home. And this is what is most confusing because you don't see the jnani sitting idle even for a second. And the third chapter is going to elaborate on this much more. Lord Krishna says, I do things. I don't need to gain anything from this world. There is nothing that I don't have that I want. There is nothing that I have that I want to get rid of. I don't need all this at all. But still I remain engaged. Why? As a source of inspiration to others. And then why? Because people, people look up to me. And if I just don't do anything, then I will have destroyed my own people. Because they will do as I do. And if I don't do anything, they see me sitting and lazing around. Or that's what they think I'm doing. So they will also lose all inspiration, motivation, ambition, etc. And neither do they have the knowledge, nor are they working towards qualifying for the knowledge. They will become what is called Ubhaya Bhrashta. And the famous line in the third chapter is Mama Vartmanu Vartante. Mama Vartma, Vartman road. My road, people will follow. The road that I am on, people will follow. Utsideyu lokaha. Na kuryat karma chedaham. If I don't do anything, even though I don't get anything out of doing, even though I don't need anything out of doing, if I don't do anything, then there is the danger. Utsideyuhu means they become neglectful. People become neglectful, apathetic. And then Sankarasya Kartasyam. I will be the creator not of the Jagat but of confusion. I will be known as the Ishvara that just created confusion. Sankarasya Kartasyam Upahanyam. I will destroy what? Upahanyam imaf prajaha. These people, all the people, I will just destroy their values. I will destroy their source of inspiration. Never again they will have any shraddha for Ishvara or for Jnanis, which are the same. They will not have any shraddha because they will just think of them as useless people, some of them. And the others who are also, who are very lazy and don't want to do any work and who are into tamas, what will they think? They will just get a nice anchor. They will say, yeah, Ishvara is not doing any karma. Look, this sadhu is not doing anything. Therefore, I also won't do anything. And so, in order to stave off these kinds of wrong thinking, this verse is offered. This verse is a kind of a look into the heart, into the mind of the jnani, to see how their experiences and those of the one who has no jnanam or is in the process of gaining this jnanam might be. So then this grasper grasped, perceiver perceived ignorance is not there. So the perceiver and the perceived are both as though manifestations of that same Brahmatma, which is myself. This is not there. Unto this reality, the people are sleeping. And unto this reality, the person is awake. And this is what we have been seeing. And then everybody is in a kind of a dream state, the dream of avidya. This is what we have seen. Further, the Bhashya. अतः कर्माणि अविद्या अवस्थायाम् एव चोद्यन्ते न च विद्या अवस्थायाम् विद्या हि सत्याम् उदिते सवितरि शार्वरम् इव तमः प्रणशम् उपगच्छति अविद्या. Therefore all actions are enjoined for the people who are ignorant. The first portion of the Veda tells so many things. It's in the form of vidhi and pratishedha, injunctions and taboos, do's and don'ts, injunctions and prohibitions. This is what the whole Veda is about. To whom do they apply? To the ajnani, not to the jnani. When the light of knowledge dawns, when the sun of knowledge dawns, the night of doing disappears. This is very, very beautiful and very important to understand. It's not that the doing disappears, but that which is the eclipse on the doing, the night of doing. What does the night of doing means? The night of doing means to that reality that the doer and the action and the means of action are all myself alone. That reality is not understood. That reality, when it is understood, it is as though disappears, as it were, into the night, and one is awakened to the fact that one is not, there is nothing there for the jnani to do or don't do out of any compulsion, out of any pressure, out of any order of the Vedas. This is what is important to understand. Then Adi Shankara, he takes a little turn in the Bhashya and addresses a very important question. The Veda is a pramana, correct? And since the Veda is a pramana, it's a means of knowledge, it's applicable to all. So then, after gaining the knowledge, the pramanyam of the Veda, the status of being a pramana for the Veda, what happens to that? That is still there. Just because you gained the knowledge, Veda doesn't cease to be a pramana, and Veda is still the pramana. And then maybe the Veda says the person of knowledge doesn't do anything. And therefore, one as a sannyasi is following simply a prohibition from the Veda not to do anything. Na niragnihi, niragnihi and akriyaha. Bhagavad Gita, which is again echoing the Veda. So niragnihi means the sannyasi does not light a fire, either for a fire ritual or for cooking, etc., etc. Why? Because that is all enjoined actions which are prohibited, which are traditionally speaking prohibited. The fire ritual is done what? For the sake of one's own betterment, upliftment, wish fulfillment. But here the sannyasi is not having any wishes and is focused on the knowledge. So the fire ritual is nirarthaka, not really enjoined. And then what? Then what else is not enjoined? All other doings, because the livelihood is the day to day food is gained from going on foot to 3, 5, or 7 houses and then begging for food, so that one does not burden any one family. So you go there and say, Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi, please give me Bhiksha. And you eat whatever is given. You don't say, even yesterday same food, even today same food. Cook some other vegetable. I'm tired of this watery something you're giving. And go put some more vegetables in the sambar. All this you don't say. And so, like this, there is this, there are all these injunctions, so to speak, about the life of how a sannyasi should be. So then, the argument would be, or the people's general understanding would be, that the sannyasi is still a doer, but more of a, what's the word for it? Sannyasi is still a doer, but more of a undoer, non-doer. Why? Because the sannyasi is following the Veda, the injunctions of the Veda to not do. Because after all, sannyasa is an ashrama. There are 4 ashramas. What are they? Studenthood, brahmacharyam, and then garhastya, grihastha, grihastha householder. Although I have a little, squabble with that term. Householder, no, house held. Okay. Yeah. Then the third one is vanaprasthin, the vanaprastha, where one goes away to a secluded spot to just meditate and uh, study. Then finally, sannyasa. Sannyasa is included in the ashrama. So all the injunctions and prohibitions for all the ashramas are given. What a brahmachari should do, should not do is given. In fact, when brahmacharya diksha is given for a small child in the tradition, these things the child has to repeat and take several vows, including not sleeping in the afternoon. And you will not sleep in the afternoon, then the child has to hold up its hand and say, Badham. I will not sleep, correct? And so all these, the dinacharya, how to lead the life is given. Sannyasi's thing is also given. In Sannyasa Upanishad, there is a whole series of Upanishads, 4 or 5 Upanishads, that go under the general term Sannyasa Upanishad. And in the first portion of the Veda also, how sannyasis should be would be given. And so therefore, the sannyasi is also following the non-doing because of the order of the Veda. This is a very interesting question, isn't it? In not doing, is the sannyasi following Vedic injunctions? And if the sannyasi is following Vedic injunctions, then there is no night and day difference between jnani and ajnani. Sannyasi here for the Adi Shankara is a jnani. Okay, he uses the terms interchangeably. And so, if the jnani and ajnani are following the same injunctions and prohibitions, then what is the difference? How can you say this is night for him and this is day for her? You cannot say that. But you cannot say that at all. Because why? Both are following injunctions. One is Nisheda Mukhat, but the one is a non-doer because the Veda asks you not to do. And the other one is a doer and a non-doer because the Veda asks you to do certain things and not do certain things. Very interesting. So in response to that, he takes a little turn, and the Bhashya, you can see there is a subject change here. Let us read. Prag vidya utpattehe अविद्या प्रमाण बुद्ध्या गृह्यमाणा क्रियाकारक भेद फल भेद रूपा सती सर्वकर्म हेतुत्वं प्रतिपद्यते. न अप्रमाण बुद्ध्या गृह्यमाणायाः कर्म हेतुत्व upapaddati, upapattihi. So, prag vidya utpattehe, before the dawn of knowledge. What? Avidya pramana buddhya. So, what is the pramana? We see, before the dawn of knowledge, what is the pramana? Don't say Shabda pramana, because the person has avidya, ignorance. So the person is not taking Veda to be a pramana and all those lofty things. So what is the person taking to be the pramana? Whatever I sense through avidya. In my avidya state, whatever I think I should be doing, because of my own subjective pressures of the raga dvesha, my own subjective pressures of the unconscious mind, etc., etc., however I am impelled to do, I will do. Certain situations I will avoid. Why? Because they are unpleasant. And then I will lose my job. Why? Because the job required me to do those very things that I found unpleasant. Then I will rail and rant and say that the world is unfair and it is targeting only me. And this is all. I'm mired in two kinds of subjectivity. One is the Vyavaharika subjectivity, which is characterized by Kriya, Karaka, Phala Bheda. Bheda, divisions. Divisions between what and what? Kriya, action. Karaka, factors of action. Now I am a doer. Now I am done in. Oh, now I'm done in by other people's doing. Oh, now I am an instrument of doing. By me, this is happening. By my skills, this is taking place. And then now, what about now? Now I am doing this for the sake of getting validation from somebody. The reason for the action, dative case. And now I'm afraid of Papa. Fifth case. I'm afraid of this. And then this is all mine, 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 mine. Sixth case. Seventh case. Into depression I go. I have what is that? I have plunged into depression. Like a chocolate covered strawberry, like a, opposite of that, not a tasty example. So I have plunged, I'm coated by depression, I have become one with depression. So like this, all these cases, now I am the doer, now I am the object, now I am the subject, now I am the instrument. Now I think why I am the sake of, for the purpose of action. Now I am there because I am the recipient of something that comes from the factors involved in action in the fifth case. I'm afraid of something. Something has come from something. All these things are for the person who is ignorant. The grammar reproduces the ignorance. That is what happens. Grammar reproduces the ignorance. The everyday grammar. So, Kriya Karaka Phalabheda Rupa Sati. So then everything is considered to be valid. Avidya is valid, and then the avidya bhuta, that which is in the form of the avidya, the prasada of avidya, so to speak. What is the prasada of avidya? The factors, actor, result of action, all these divisions. What happens? Sarva karma hetutvam pratipadyate. This kriya karaka phala bheda rupa, these addiction to a certain way of looking at oneself as the doer, as the done in, as being involved in the factor of action, this addiction becomes the cause of action. And so Adi Shankara makes the drastic case here, saying until Shastra is accepted as the Pramana. What is the Pramana? What is the means of knowledge through which everything, through which every action is done? The means of knowledge is ignorance. Ayyo, how can the means of knowledge be ignorance? Meaning, whatever I hear, whatever I see, whatever I do, as a result of my not knowing the truth of myself, is considered valid. That is how the word avidya pramana buddhya is used by Adi Shankara. All my thoughts and all my knowing, whatever I know in the state of avidya, meaning kriya karaka phala bheda rupa, divisions. What I know is a vision of division, and what I know is wrong, is totally erroneous. But that, to set that aside for now, what I know are the divisions, and what I do ensue from the valid belief that these divisions are real. This is what is called a person with avidya pramana buddhi before Shastra comes into the picture. And even this Shastra means second portion of the Veda, Vedanta, because one can go a long time and look upon the first portion of the Veda as a pramana, but still they are having what? Avidya pramanam eva. Because the first portion of the Veda does not deal with the nature of the self. It always deals with the division between you, the doer, and the results of what you do. And then the whole point is to behave in a way that increases punya, decreases the load of papa. And then in the process, you get whatever you want. You just gain whatever you want. You fulfill desires along the way. Along the way, you fulfill desires. That is the idea. So then, but न अप्रमाण बुद्ध्या गृह्यमाणायाः कर्म हेतुत्व उपपत्तिः न उपपत्तिः, we have to say. अप्रमाण बुद्ध्या गृह्यमाणायाः, for the person who does not give avidya the time of day. For the person who does not give avidya the time of day. Avidya is, and whatever avidya tells me to do or not do, is not entertained. And so then what? That person does not become the cause of action or the factors of action, or does not become identified with a result of action. Then further, pramana bhutena vedena mama choditam kartavyam karma iti hi karmani karta pravartate na avidya matram idam sarvam nisha iva iti. So the Veda is the authority, pramana, which, what does it do? The first portion of the Veda here insists on everybody doing what they are supposed to do according to varna, ashrama, etc. It insists. It says, yes, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to go here, you have to go there, and dana must be given, brahmanas must be fed, and these people must be invited, and then this is what you need to do. And then you need to give here, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then so this is how the person's life is characterized by only doing. Which is what? Pramana bhutena vedena. The Veda which is in the form of pramana, what does it say? Mama choditam kartavyam karma iti. It says this is your duty. This is what one thinks. Thinking that this is what I am. What am I? Doer. And so this is enjoined for me. This is enjoined for me. And while the person is doing, the person does not look upon it as an illusion, as a dream-like state, as though it is night. Na nisha iva. So the karta pravartate. So the karta is up and about, out and about in the daylight of this, this pramana that one is a doer. The first portion of the Veda which declares one to be the doer, one is active in that, but the jnani is asleep to that. The jnani is asleep to the Veda, which says, the first portion of the Veda which says that you are a doer and you better start doing things properly. To that reality, the jnani is blissfully asleep. Yasya punaha. Further, nisha iva avidya matram idam sarvam भेदजातम् इति ज्ञानं तस्य आत्मज्ञस्य सर्वकर्मसन्न्यासे एव अधिकारः न प्रवृत्तौ यस्य again पुनः furthermore यस्य for whom nisha iva avidyamatram idam sarvam, that in whom there is the knowledge. What is the knowledge? So, in which Atma Jnani, in which knower of the self, the knowledge is there. Which knowledge? That this Bheda Jatam, this vision of division, this this empirical reality characterized by duality is nothing but avidya matram, is a product of avidya, is the result of self in ignorance. Once the person knows this, then the person is not fit for karma, is not at all fit for karma, is only fit to renounce karma. You see, the first portion of the Veda with which Adi Shankara is, what is that? Is tagging, is engaging a little bit, is because of the preponderance of the people who only looked upon one half of the Veda, the first portion of the Veda, as pramana, and then they just forgot about the Upanishads. Even now, any puja you organize, hundreds of people will come. You organize a Vedanta talk, 4 or 5 will come. That is what it is. And you organize a yajna, thousands of people will come. And you organize Chandi Homa, goddess. Goddess is very popular because she keeps giving, and you keep asking her to give. She is the immediate material cause of the universe, so she deals with materials, and the best material is money, and so and all kinds of resources. So you have a homa centered on the goddess, everybody will come. And but you have a Vedanta talk in your house, and then all the chairs will be more or less empty, with a few exceptions. And so therefore what? So this is one, um, this is the idea here, that if and when the person awakens to his or her own reality as a non-doer, and the reality is what? There is no doing, there is no doer, there is no done in, there is no action, there is no result of action. When one knows, then for that person there is nothing to do. Ko vidhihi, ko nishedha, Shukashtakam says. There is no vidhi, there is no nishedha. And so there is nothing to do. So this duality is just a like night. And na pravritti, na pravrittau adhikarah, the person does not have any right to action. Tathacha darshayishyati. The Bhagavad Gita will furthermore show what? Tad buddhayah tadatmanah tannishta tatparayanaha. In the 5th verse, somewhere in the beginning, maybe 15th, 5th chapter, 15th, 16th, somewhere there, verse. This is there, this particular verse is there. Tad buddhayah tadatmanah tannishtaha tatparayanaha. Means the people who are totally committed to Brahman. They live Brahman, eat Brahman, they know they are Brahman, and then for them there is no action that is enjoined. This is going to become clearer in the 5th chapter as well. He says, and so that the that one who is fit to remain, such a person is fit only for the path of jnanam, not karma. So here Adi Shankara at this point raises a question, a very intriguing question. And he answers it also. What is the question? Tatra api pravarta karma pramana abhave pravarti anupapattihi iti chet. So, maybe for the jnani, it is worded in a technical way. So, I'm just going to translate it. Not exactly, because it's a technical words are used here. So, pravarta karma pramana abhave. So, if for the jnani, the pravartaka karma, the karma that enjoins you to do in the first portion of the Veda is not relevant, then perhaps what the jnani is following is so that is nivrityatmaka injunctions. So nivrityatmaka vidhi will be there in the first portion of the Veda, and perhaps he or she is following that. So in other words, for the person in the first portion of the Veda, nobody should renounce karma. How dare you renounce karma when Bhagavan itself is the Veda and Bhagavan is telling you to do this? How can you renounce? They cannot imagine somebody with Atma Jnanam. They cannot imagine this at all. How can you renounce? You cannot renounce at all. And so, therefore, what? So, pravartaka karma, pravartaka pramana abhave, in the absence of, in the case of the jnani, in the absence of injunction, there is no injunction that what the jnani should do is not there, and then therefore perhaps the jnani is following what one must not do, and so still the jnani is also following the Veda as a pramana. This is the objection. Please understand it carefully, okay? Because there is a long rebuttal for this, and the objection is very subtle, so therefore we have to be very mindful of this. So what is the meaning here of the objection is that karma is to be enjoined because there is an injunction in the Vedas. So karma is, action is enjoined because depending upon the various vidhi in the Vedas. So now, why does not the jnani participate in karma? Because that there is perhaps there are injunctions that the sannyasi, aka jnani, should not do karma. Then what does that mean? No harm in that. Let the jnani not do karma based on what the Veda says he or she should not do. No harm in that. But really speaking, this is a harmful objection. Why? Because that makes the jnani equally dependent upon the Veda as a pramana, as an ajnani. That is the problem here. A very subtle problem, but a very big problem. Because if the jnani also needs to look up to some authority other than oneself, to decide what to do and what not to do, we'll skim through the pages of the Veda or skim in the mind the mantras of what should not be done and do not do that. That means what? The Veda is telling the jnani what to do and what not to do. What's wrong with that? Because the pramana, after the person gains the knowledge, the pramana stops speaking to the person. Whether it's the pramana is in the form of the injunctions and prohibitions, or whether the pramana is in the form of tattvam asi. In either case, it stops speaking to the person. The pramana speaks only to whom? Huh? Pramata, the knower. Pramana means the means of knowledge. Means of knowledge means what? Tattvamasi. So, if supposing somebody hears Tattvamasi and the Tattvamasi is knowledge is unfolded for such a person, then who is that person? The person who is the knower, the one who is the knower. The pramata is there, and the pramata says, I have self-ignorance and I am asleep to my reality. Please wake me up. And so the teacher put some Put some water on the face and wakes the person up. The water is Tattvamasi. Sprinkles the water of Tattvamasi and wakes the person up. All these duality is a spoof. You are neither the doer nor the done in. You were asleep to this knowledge. When you were not, it is a knowledge that knocks off the knower. Because when the knower is a separate entity, then the known will always be separate from the knower, because there is an object-subject divide. And the subject objectifies the object, and therefore the subject-object will never meet. They are like two parallel lines. This is one's everyday reality. But what happens in the process of gaining Atma Jnanam? In the process of gaining Atma Jnanam, magic happens. And what is that magic? I question myself whether the status of knower, doer, etc. is real. That is what I question. And then through the operation of the pramana, I find that the status of knower, doer, enjoyer, karta, bhokta, pramata, jnata, all these things are a superimposition upon that I, which is free of all as though superimpositions. So the I may be doing many things, but the doer is I am not the doer. Knower is I am not the knower. Thinker is I am not the thinker. Why is the thinker I? Because everything is I, Atma. Thinker is Atma, Atma is not the thinker. Atma is all ERs without being connected to any substantive. This is what one has to know. And in the wake of this knowledge, the knower is dislodged as a reality. The ahankara, which is identified with the knower, symbolized by the index finger, which is identified with the body, the mind, the senses, and all a host of the things in the universe, including the notion I am the knower, is told to identify with Brahman. Is walked over from the identification with the knower, doer, thinker, sleeper, eater, drinker, etc. and is told to identify with Brahman. And then when you identify as Brahman, when that Brahma abhimana is there, when that identification as Brahman, that tadatmya comes, when that identification is understood, is gained, so to speak. It was always there, but it is as though discovered in the wake of the knowledge. Then what? Then there is nobody available for your precious injunctions. Adi Shankara points out, for your injunctions and prohibitions, there should be somebody there. Somebody who listens. There is nobody who identifies as the doer, and then what are your whole injunctions are gone to waste for this person. It's like somebody asks you to wake them up. So you wake them up. And after waking them up, then you say, okay, I'm going to play you a lullaby. The lullaby is of no use for the person just awakened, because the person doesn't need to go to sleep, doesn't want to go to sleep, is not interested in sleep at all. May be interested 10 hours later, but we are not talking of that. We are talking right now. The person is the least interested in sleep. And so after waking them up, then you say, this lullaby is for you. Here, I got you an album of many, many lullabies. The person is going to say, sorry, not interested right now. This is exactly how the injunctions and the prohibitions in the Veda appear to the Jnani, totally and completely irrelevant, having no relevance whatsoever. Absolutely irrelevant is this knowledge of do's and don'ts, because there is no doer. It's like you are cooking a big meal in the dream. You were keeping on putting masala, and then the more and more rice you were putting, more and more dal you were making. Why? Because you had a terrible nightmare. You kept seeing people streaming in through the door, and then as you cooked, you find out you have to cook some more, and some more, and some more. And that is what happened here 2 days ago when, when one Shankaracharya from the north visited along with his whole retinue, and then the people who had come to see him. It's like the lunch hour in the dining hall never finished. Kept on having to make more and more and more. So one is in the middle of the dream. Single-handedly, I have to cook this much amount. And then what? Then you wake up. Then somebody brings you a pot and pan, and then some rice and dal. What will you do? You will throw it at their face because you don't want to be reminded of the dream. You will cover their head with the pot to go away. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to think about this because I'm awake. That was a dream. So like this, the awakened jnani may be doing things, but without an identification with the doer. And when there is no identification to the doer, please tell me, to whom are the injunctions and the prohibitions in the Veda addressed? Please also tell me. Don't suppose somebody says you're being partial and you're only discussing the first portion of the Veda. Let's bring in the second portion too. Let's bring in Vedanta also. To whom is this Tattvamasi addressed? Tattvamasi is addressed to the one who doesn't know. And the one who knows Tattvamasi, why will they do? It's like repeating a class after one has passed out of that class. The person has got an A, okay, and has finished, has graduated with honors, and the person is asked to go back and go to the undergraduate class. Why? It is of no relevance anymore. And that is what is the objection and the answer. So the objection we have seen, and then let's see how Bhagavan Adi Shankara meets this objection. He in the characteristic way, first he refutes. No, not at all. Why? Svatmavishayatvat atmajnanasya. I mean, you have to love him. This is just a lovely bhashya. Just 2 words. The rebuttal is in 2 words, which are then unpacked. Atmajnanasya svatmavishayatvat na. So the knowledge of the Atma is what? Knowledge of one's own self. It's not like any other injunction which is giving you orders about something other than you. All the injunctions and the prohibitions of the Vedas, they are directed towards you, but they are about other people. They are about other subject matters. But this is what? About you yourself. Svatma Vishayatvat, because of the nature of Atma Jnanam being the knowledge of one's own self. Swasya Atmanaha Vishayatvat, because it is the knowledge of one's own self, then we don't need any other authority. There is no expectancy for any other authority to tell you to devote to the knowledge of yourself. So there is no injunction. Even though there is an injunction, one must study one's own Veda. That is where the injunction stops. Nowhere does the Veda say, please gain Atmajnanam. First portion of the Veda will not say that, and does not need to say that. Why? Because the ignorance is felt inside oneself, inside one's heart, inside one's head, wherever one senses it. The ignorance is sensed. And one cannot brook this ignorance, and so therefore one seeks a teacher. And even though the Upanishad says, may one go to the teacher, by that time one has already gone to the teacher, even before reading this. And so therefore the ignorance is sensed, and something I want to do about this ignorance, that is also sensed. How? All on one's own. Why? Because the Atma is self-evident. And the subject matter of this is oneself, not a kalpa, not a how to do a ritual, not how to do something other than me. So then further he says, Nahi Atmanah Svatmani Pravartaka Pramana Apekshata Atmatvad Eva Tad Antatvat Cha Sarva Pramananam Pramanatvasya. Very difficult construction, very technical. So we'll just take little bites of it at a time. Let's make this sentence very simple and see the absolute basic thing here. And then next week we will continue. Let's just look at the gist of this. So, nahi tad antatvat, from nahi we will skip to tad antatvat cha. Pravartaka pramana apekshata antatvat cha sarva pramananam pramanatvasya. He makes the radical claim, which is true, that the pramanatvam, the authority of all authorities in the form of the Veda or Vedanta, terminates at the juncture of self-knowledge. When I know I am not the doer, all factors such as may one know the self, etc., or may one not do this, may one desist from this action, etc., all that drop. All that drop. Then for whom are those injunctions? For the people curious about sannyasa, for the people curious about atmajnanam, so that they know what is there on the other side, so to speak. For them, these injunctions and prohibitions are addressed. So the first portion of the Veda, filled with all kinds of injunctions, all kinds of prohibitions, comes to an end because the knower itself is resolved. And the one to whom the injunction is addressed, thinking of himself or herself as needing orders from an authority, looking up to some authority, including Ishvara. Looking up to some authority saying, please tell me what to do, please tell me how to lead my life. That plea is from a sense of helplessness. The Atmajnani is not helpless. The Atmajnani does not want anything from anybody, including Ishvara, because the Atmajnani has realized or understood and assimilated the knowledge of one's own Ishvaratvam. And so therefore what? Therefore, therefore all these orders and all these things secede. All these things secede. Everything comes to a close. The person who is woken up does not need to be woken up. The person who is woken up does not need to be put to sleep either, because it is redundant. So all the things are redundant, and this was already pointed out in an earlier thing, in an earlier verse also in the second chapter. Yavanartha udapane sarvatas samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. Vijanatah brahmanasya, the one who knows I am Brahman, for them the Veda is just about as useful as a well when the whole area is flooded. So why will somebody go to draw water from a well when the whole area is flooded? Everywhere you can find water. And similarly, in the same way, for the Jnani, the Veda is redundant. Vedanta is also redundant. More we'll see. It is a very interesting and involved argument. We will see that not next week, because we will not have class next week due to Guru Purnima functions at the ashrams. At the ashram. Is that on? No, that will not. That is on Monday, right? Or that is on. That is in the morning. I'm confused. Will we have some functions on next Monday morning? So this class will not be impacted. Yes. So because it is already Tuesday over here. Yeah, so this will not be impacted. Okay. So we will see more next week. Next week there will be this class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. That's it.